And we love our partnership with the Roxbury International Film Festival. We have been partnering with the Film Sisters and all the crew that backs them up for many years now. And as a matter of fact, Allison and Lisa are recipients of last year's Common Good Award. So I encourage you all here on this special day of Juneteenth to see some extraordinary films. Most of them from local filmmakers. Allison's going to talk about them a little bit. But thank you, because mass art, one of the things that we feel so strongly and deeply about is partnering with our community. And we are thrilled when we can open up the doors and have neighbors and friends and supporters of the arts here to be part of mass art, but part of this really important film festival. So I'm going to turn it over to my friend and partner here, Allison.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Welcome to day 2 of the Roxbury International Film Festival. Last night we had a great opening. We thought it was kind of over, and we were like, oh my God, we have 9 days left. So we have lots of films going, but this screening is particularly important as a Juneteenth screening because as our history gets erased, we want to remember the stories of our ancestors and to celebrate them. So today we're going to see Enslaved Africans, Paul Cuffe. We're going to look at, I'm sorry, I can't even see this. Between Fire and Freedom, A Peculiar Freedom, Black New England, Hidden in Plain Sight, and then Nantucket, Historical Colored Ceremony. So afterwards there'll be a Q&A because we have a lot of local filmmakers in the audience. And just to remind people that Daily Reads is every day at 12 o'clock. You can do it on Zoom. It's local screenwriters, and we invite local actors to read their plays. So enjoy the film, and we'll talk to you later.
Okay, this is wonderful. I'd like to start by first introducing each one of you. If you could just tell us your name and the film and why you thought it was important to make this film.
Good evening, my name is Lorna DeRose, and the film is called Hidden in Plain Sight, a history of Black Catholics within the Archdiocese of Boston. And when we talked about the conversation that led to this film being made, it was because we felt that although Black Catholics have been a part of the history of Catholicism within Boston, within Massachusetts, it's a history that is not very well known, and so it was time for that story to begin to be known and to begin to be understood.
Wonderful, thank you.
Hello, my name is Denise Washington, and I'm one of the directors and producers of Enslaved African. And Enslaved African is an excerpt of a documentary that I'm currently working on. I just need to get some funding. The two characters that you see in Enslaved African, they were enslaved on the Longfellow House. 5 years ago, my big cousin Dennis came to me and said, we are descendants of Darby Vassal. Who's Darby Vassal? How come I don't know about him? Why weren't this information in history books? So 5 years ago, he took me to the National Center, Park Services, Longfellow House. I met with the staff there. They asked me what I wanted to do. For 5 years, I've been curating a Juneteenth event at that land where Darby Vassal, his family, and other enslaved people were enslaved. The two characters that you see in the film are my father's great-great-great-grandparents. Cuba, Darby Vassal's mother, and Tony, Darby Vassal's father. Cuba, her mother, and her brother were enslaved in Antigua by the royals. Once the royals found out that there was going to be a revolt in Antigua, they fled to Benford, Mass. I'm not sure if any of you know where the slave quarters, royal plantation and slave quarters are, but that's where they were enslaved. The royals met the vassals, got married, they moved to 105 Brow Street in Cambridge. Cuba, I want to say that she's one of the first women who petitioned for reparations, because once the vassals found out that there was going to be an American Revolution, they fled back to Europe, leaving Cuba, Tony, Dobby, and anyone else who was enslaved on that land. And that's when she petitioned for the land and money. So it's just it's an excerpt that's in a longer documentary, and I hope that I'll get some funding and that it will be in the next film festival next year.
Hi, I'm Anita Allison. I did Paul Cuffe Is Me music video, and I found out, thank you, I found out about Paul Cuffe at the New Bedford Whaling Museum a few years ago, and I was absolutely blown away that I had never heard of this man who was born free in 1759, and he accumulated wealth and political power. He was the first black man to meet with a sitting president. He opened the first interracial schoolhouse in the United States, and his crews were his ships were crewed by black and indigenous men. And he was the first person in the United States to have black self-determination in terms of repatriating black Americans in Africa. And I had never heard of him before. He was Quaker, I was brought up Quaker, he's interracial. I've always looked for interracial people in history, never heard of him. So I went down a rabbit hole and I studied him and I started writing scripts. And then, so I've written a television pilot, I've written a feature film, I have a short film that's coming out, it's premiering August 13th at the New Bedford Whaling Museum. But all of this is to say that the music video happened because Daniel Laurent, the rapper, he heard about Paul Cuffe's story, and he was as inspired as I was, and he wrote that song with Roy Studmeyer doing the music. And it's just an amazing song. We got the dancers from Brickhouse, New York, and put together the music video, and it's to lay the groundwork so that we can let people know about Paul Cuffe. We think that his story is really important, and that we really could use heroes, American heroes, that are about not just accumulating wealth, but accumulating wealth and putting it back into our communities, as opposed to hoarding wealth and stepping on the vulnerable. So that's why I'm going to tell that story. Thank you.
The film about Nantucket's historic colored cemetery is a group effort. There are 4 of us who came from Nantucket today. I'm Frances Cartonet, Barbara White, and I were writers. We also have one of our narrators, Carter Stewart, and we are sadly grieving the loss of another of our narrators, Edwin Rookie Ramos, to whom we dedicate this screening. And this is Lee, Rookie's wife, who's with us today.
I'm Barbara White, and I co-wrote the film about the African, the black colored cemetery on Nantucket, and wrote some of the history, and Fran did as well. And we recruited local Nantucketers to read the stories, and that's it. And my students were the ones who petitioned the Board of Selectmen years ago to improve the cemetery, and so I thought they'd agree.
My name is Carter Stewart. My mom, Isabel Stewart, and I were in the Nantucket Colored Cemetery film, because my great-grandparents built a cottage there, a summer cottage in Nantucket in 1926 that we still have in the family. And what you heard at the very beginning in the opening about the danger of our stories fading away is literally happening at the cemetery. From the pictures you saw, it's fading away in this documentary is a beautiful way of memorializing this so that future generations can understand what happened.
I just want to add that, you know, this film could have been double in length because a lot of the stories we had to abbreviate in order for the budget to make it short enough. So there's a lot more that could be told.
Sounds like another film is coming. Go for it.
I'm Nora Jacobson, and I'm one of the makers of A Peculiar Freedom, which you saw. And my collaborator, Reggie Jackson, is there, right, standing right there. Co-producer, and two of our collaborators couldn't make it, Natasha Nagaiza and Will Hart. Well, I can just say for me why I wanted to work on this collaborative project is that I grew up in Vermont and had never heard any of the stories growing up in school, in elementary school and high school, especially Lucy Terry Prince, who was actually quite well known, really, but we never knew about her. And even though she had paid a visit to my town, Norwich, in 1783, and spent a week in my hometown of Norwich to petition the governor to help her when her neighbors had abused her and her family. She spent a week in my town and there was nothing about her. And so that's part of why I wanted to work on this project. And Reggie, do you want to say anything?
Sure. When I got the call to be part of this collaboration, I had thought that I would sort of play a peripheral role in this enterprise. My family came from Barbados, eventually ended up in Vermont, where I have also been owned property for almost half century. And so it was a kind of a natural thing for me to think about, well, okay, who were the people who were here before me and what were their circumstances? And as we got more into this collaboration, I began to realize how similar some of those stories that you saw in A Peculiar Freedom paralleled some of the experiences that I had experienced, as well as other folk who I had connected with in Vermont. And so I began to realize that this was a very deep and necessary enterprise that needed to happen. And so I've been fortunate to be able to participate in a number of ways, as I had been told by funders that I shouldn't be more than a collaborator in the sense of one of the producers, but also artistically and to some extent visually as well.
Very nice. Thank you.
All right, let's raise the energy for everyone's film that was showed tonight, because such great films by great directors. My film was Between Fire and Freedom, starring my beautiful daughter and my beautiful son. Wow. What an honor to be able to showcase such a film. So last year, like I think July 18th, Catherine Morris of Bands Fest, beautiful soul, she gives the best hugs. My wife's here. My wife's wearing a hug from last year still, so great hugs from Catherine. So last year around July, Catherine texted me and said, hey, you want to meet in Franklin Park at Playstead? And I'm like, yeah, sure, why not? You know, and I personally didn't know what I was going to get myself into, right? So on the 19th of July, we met, and she brought these papers of documents about festivities that would happen around White Stadium and on the land. And I was like, wow, I never knew any of this was happening. And I'm looking over like, wow, this is kind of crazy. You know, let's take a walk. So we're walking, and then she leads me to like this back route of like this place I've never been. I lived in Roxbury my whole life, and I'm like, I've never been here. I played here since I was a kid. And we went back to the spot that looked like it was burned down. She gave me the history of it. And we spoke what seemed like forever, but it ended up being like 2 hours. And then we're talking about, Elmer Lewis's part, in the land and, just how the overlooked towers or the ruins burnt down. And I was just like, just my gears were grinding as a filmmaker. And I'm like, there's something here. I didn't know what it was yet, but I knew there was something there. So after we were done sweating and standing outside in 80-degree heat, we parted ways. And then my gears were grinding, and I'm like, something's just calling me, to the space. And then I realized maybe there was a script there. I started writing, but then I realized I needed actors, and I'm like, oh, I don't have any actors. And then I saw my daughter and my son run across, and I'm like, oh, that's it. That's it. I can pay them less. So I read about my daughter and my son, and they're excited. They're like, finally we get to be a part of Dad's films, which I've been doing film forever. And I'm writing the script, and I just got, brain fog, because I'm like, I don't know how to tell the story. I'm not a part of this history. And then I realized I am a part of this history. This is my way to tell a story that I think the Roxbury community can relate to. And then as I started to write, I realized that this doesn't have to be perfect. This could be a film about my perspective of what I think. And I curated this beautiful piece called Between Fire and Freedom. This story can go on forever, but it's a film that's rooted in what happens when the possibilities are seen by people who typically are not the average person to see them, right? So Elmer Lewis seen something in the ruins that people wouldn't have seen otherwise.
There is a theme that just seems to run through all of the films, which is that these stories needed to be told. I saw them for the first time, and I couldn't believe it. A lot of people I didn't know, I hadn't heard of. It then led me to more research. Being somewhat of an ancestry buff, it was just natural for me. That said, I hate to cut this short. This is just such a great
I just got one last thing to
conversation.
say on top of that.
We've got to head out because we're going to clear out. We have another film that's starting at 7:30. But I encourage you to take this conversation out in the hallway as you're grabbing snacks and making those bio runs, please, and come back here at 7:30. But I thank you all so much. Thanks again to this wonderful audience. Hate to cut this short, but we've got to clear out the auditorium to make room for the next film. Thanks again.